We continue now with the great one, Mark Levin. The book is called The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic. All right, we're going to get into this in a lot of detail Friday, but I want to give a preview because you have offered, you're saying that the states can propose constitutional amendments, not a constitutional convention.
Correct.
Okay, let's go over them. Right. First one.
Well, term limits for members of the House and the Senate, because historically, when they created this bicameral legislature, the House 2 terms, the Senate 6 terms, and the Senate was supposed to be made up of members who were chosen by the state legislatures, by the way, and I addressed that too. They wanted rotation in and out of office because they wanted these people to have a real, true understanding of what their constituents were thinking and what they were feeling. As a matter of fact, really, Congress was part-time. Farmers continued to farm. Businessmen continued to be businessmen. And you can see the problem today. I mean, you have members of Congress who represent certain industries or unions or interests as much or more than their constituents or states. Mm-hmm. You have an example. I'll give you an example. Let me also talk about the 17th Amendment, where you have to take this.
You want to abolish it.
Well, I want to go back to what the framers intended for. The Senate makes no sense.
Well, let me just say, so the first one is an amendment, term limits for Congress, and you lay out the historical reasons for it.
And 12 years and out.
12 years
12 years total, one house or the other or combined.
And then your second one is an amendment to restore the Senate to the way we used to elect senators.
Right, and this would be a tough argument. Look, these are ideas that I think would help reestablish constitutional republicanism as the framers intended, and I make the case in each chapter. I don't just throw them out. I draw from the framers and why they did this. This bicameral plan was presented by the Sherman plan, a Connecticut plan, and the plan was that the Senate would be representative of the states, so the states would have input in what's going on in the federal government, and in the House of Representatives, direct election 2 years. Now we have people sitting 20 years, not representing the states. It's a mishmash, and the problem is you have this professional, dug-in, entrenched bureaucracy.
All right, so term limits for Congress, go back to the old way the state legislators will elect senators. Then you say an amendment that would establish term limit for Supreme Court justices and a supermajority legislative override.
Right. Well, I mean, why should one lawyer, depending on really the luck of the draw, the historical times, a 5-4 vote for all time set in place cultural, social, economic, whatever policy for the nation, a nation of 310 million people without any recourse whatsoever.
One person.
It is absurd. That's not what the Constitution intended. There's nobody at the Constitutional Convention that argued for that. And if that had been the case, there would have been no Constitution because the states would never have conferred that kind of power.
You even said in the book that the framers thought that would be the weakest branch.
They thought that would be the weakest branch. There's no question about it. And I'm not saying eliminate the independence of the judiciary, the Supreme Court. What I'm saying is in some of these far-reaching societal cases, well, let society have a say. 3/5 of the states or 3/5 of Congress having the power to override a majority Supreme Court decision.
All right. Then you have 2 amendments to limit federal spending and taxing.
Right.
We're not going to survive as a republic if we keep spending. And you outline all this in great detail, but the short synopsis.
That may be the longest chapter because all the information is necessary. Does anybody really think this Congress, this president, is going to limit itself? Have they shown any evidence of that? In fact, this president comes to office, massively expands spending, and quite frankly, George W. Bush massively expanded spending under him with a Republican Congress. This is not Republican or Democrat. This is constitutional and originalism. And the problem is, under Republican administrations and Congresses, under Democrat administrations and Congresses, we have this massive explosion of the federal government. And if we don't constitutionally limit that, and how much of our private property they can take through taxation, well, we're doomed because they're not going to limit it.
You have an amendment to limit the federal bureaucracy, which is now, as you said, they're in every aspect of our life. They're even designing our cars.
Well, the federal bureaucracy is the 4th branch of government. Yeah. They issue 3,000 laws and rules a year. I mean, and the people have no say in it. So that is a delegation Congress gave to them, and I say it ought to be delegated back.
You believe an amendment to promote free enterprise, protect private property, grant the states the authority to directly amend the Constitution.
Right. 2/3 of the states to directly amend the Constitution. And look, the Constitution's been rewritten and mangled and amended left and right by all three branches of the federal government. I'm talking about a stable, predictable system. Still, a supermajority, 2/3 states is not easy. Oh, you know, 3/5 of the states wouldn't even sign the Obamacare brief challenging that. So these are still supermajorities. But, Sean, there needs to be recourse for the people, not through majoritarianism, but through representative government. That's what the states were supposed to be, a buffer between them and the federal government.
So the bottom line here is, and we'll go into great detail for the full hour we have you on Friday night. You're coming back. We're going to do a live audience show. But the bottom line is that there is recourse. It is within the Constitution itself. And it begins with state legislatures, and the amendment process can happen. In other words, you believe this is the answer for those that say, what do we do?
I believe it's the answer, and I believe we conservatives or constitutionalists or Americans generally, we have to have the resolve that the left has. They spent 100 years pushing for this government-run health care, and they finally got it, and they wouldn't take no for an answer. We should spend whatever time it takes to protect our children and our grandchildren and future generations and reestablish the Constitution and the liberty that flows from it.
All right, Mark, great book, The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic.